Betrayal, they claim, often doesn't take root in the shadows of bedrooms. It ignites in fleeting glances, hushed whispers, and the heavy silence that lingers between spoken words. I was 57, seemingly content, wrapped in a cocoon of safety, or so I believed. A seemingly innocuous dinner invitation from my husband's colleague should have been just that, nothing more. But what transpired that night sparked a fire within me that I never realized was absent. His touch was fleeting, but its presence haunted the air. His words, though measured, pierced with a haunting intensity. And in that fleeting instant beneath the garden lights, every conviction I held about love, loyalty, and my very identity started to fracture. You believe you're invincible until the moment shatters your reality. Never did I foresee that a seemingly ordinary dinner party would upend my entire existence in such a profound way. At 57, I believed the days of unexpected twists had faded into the past. For over 30 years, my husband David and I had been bound in marriage, our days unfolding with a chilling predictability. Retirement mornings in the garden, where the air is thick with anticipation. Afternoons consumed by the gripping tales of books, and quiet evenings with David on the couch, where every moment feels charged with unspoken words. Life was a fragile stillness, teetering on the edge of uncertainty. Secure. It all came to a head that fateful Friday night. We received an invitation to dinner from Blake, David's colleague for almost 10 years, and his wife, Susan. Blake, at just 48, held an undeniable charm that captivated everyone around him. His silver-streaked hair framed a face that exuded confidence, while his voice resonated powerfully, cutting through the noise of any boardroom with ease. There was an undeniable allure to him, captivating, yet firmly rooted in reality. Susan radiated beauty, a woman whose elegance was matched only by her innate ability to make others feel welcome, creating an atmosphere thick with warmth and unspoken connection. Their home stood as a stunning facade, colonial, bathed in a warm glow, yet beneath the surface, the air thickened with the tantalizing aroma of fresh herbs and roasted garlic, hinting at secrets simmering just out of sight. As I stepped inside, an overwhelming wave of warmth washed over me, wrapping me in its embrace. Soft jazz floated down from an unseen source, wrapping the room in a haunting embrace. The flickering candlelight cast shadows that swirled and twisted upon the polished wood, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation. "Diana, I'm so relieved you're here," Susan said, her voice thick with emotion as she pulled me into a tight embrace, as if we were long-lost sisters finally reunited. Her kindness wrapped around my frayed nerves, a fragile balm in the storm of uncertainty. I forced a smile in return. The aroma in this place is absolutely intoxicating. David and Blake were locked in a heated conversation, their glasses of wine trembling slightly in their grip. We took our seats at the table, and soon the air was thick with laughter, each sound echoing with unspoken tension. Blake had just returned from a trip to Italy, his stories weaving a tapestry of laughter that enveloped us all, especially David, whose rare moments of relaxation felt like a fleeting glimpse of sunlight breaking through the clouds. Yet, the tranquility of the evening shattered the moment dessert made its entrance. As we savored the decadent chocolate mousse, Blake suddenly turned to me, his gaze piercing, filled with an unsettling intensity. "Diana," he said, his voice low and intense, "David tells me you possess a remarkable talent for gardening. I've been locked in a fierce struggle with my roses. An expert, I would be invaluable." "Oh, I wouldn't call myself an expert," I said, a modest smile flickering across my lips, concealing the storm of uncertainty brewing within. "Just wait. I'd be more than willing to take a closer look. Perhaps we could consider it after dessert?" he offered. His tone was casual, yet an undeniable shift hung in the air, subtle but palpable. A sudden flicker. Perhaps it was all just a figment of my imagination. In that moment, he guided me toward the back patio, the air thick with unspoken words. The night air hung heavy, infused with the intoxicating scent of jasmine and the lingering wisps of smoke curling from the outdoor fire pit, creating an atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. The stars flickered ominously in the night sky, Blake knelt beside a row of struggling rose bushes, his expression a mix of determination and despair, and beckoned for me to join him. "Do you notice how the leaves are turning a haunting shade of yellow? What did you mean by that?" he pressed, his voice laced with urgency. His voice had descended into a deeper, more resonant tone. "Come nearer." Intense. I crouched beside him, my heart racing as the weight of the moment pressed down on us. "It seems they have an insatiable hunger for nitrogen. Perhaps a touch more shadow as well." He stared at me. Not merely a fleeting glance, but a deep, penetrating gaze, long enough for me to feel the weight of it in my very skin. "You and David," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something extraordinary between you. I wish I could feel that way." The sincerity in his voice sent a jolt through me. "Every marriage has its seasons," I responded, my heart racing with caution. "You and Susan," he shook his head, a storm of emotions brewing within him. "For years, we've existed as mere roommates, the spark of partnership long extinguished." In his eyes, I glimpsed a vulnerability that took me by surprise, stirring something deep within me. Just as I was ready to speak, his hand grazed against mine, sending a jolt through the air between us. Illumination, a whisper of contact. But that is where it ends. I stood paralyzed. He recoiled at once. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice trembling with shame. "No, that wasn't. I never intended. I should have turned and left, but I stayed rooted in place." Instead, I whispered, "It's all right." My voice trembled, softer than I had ever meant it to be. "You're simply speaking the truth." We sat in heavy silence, the moonlight spilling its silver shadows across the garden, enveloping us in an air of unspoken tension. My heart pounded relentlessly in my chest. A fragment of my being surged with vitality. A fragment of my soul was engulfed in shame. As we stepped back inside, David glanced up, a smile plastered on his face, masking the turmoil that lingered just beneath the surface. Yet something had shifted, and I was haunted by the certainty that I might never escape its grip. The morning after the dinner party, an unsettling tension hung in the air, as if the very walls were whispering secrets of what had transpired. David moved through the morning routine, brewing coffee with a practiced ease, his eyes scanning the emails that flickered on the screen, a soft tune escaping his lips, masking the storm brewing just beneath the surface. And yet, an unsettling sensation gripped me, a profound change stirring deep within my core. Blake's eyes haunted me, the sincerity in his voice echoed in my mind, and that brief, electric touch of his hand against mine lingered like a whisper of something unspoken. Blake's eyes haunted my thoughts, and that brief touch of his hand lingered like a whisper in the dark. I tried to convince myself that I was being absurd, that I had completely misunderstood everything, that I had been unwavering in my loyalty, that I was deeply, irrevocably in love with David. Yet, as I tended to my lilies that morning, an unsettling anticipation gripped me, compelling my gaze toward the street, waiting, hoping for Blake to appear. And he did it. David's voice rang out from the shadows of the back porch, carefree and oblivious, a stark contrast to the brewing storm of uncertainty that loomed just beyond his reach. "Mel, someone is here to see you." I glanced upward, my heart pounding fiercely. Blake lingered in the shadows behind David, clutching a delicate potted rose, its vibrant petals a stark contrast to the tension in the air. Blake lingered in the shadows behind David, gripping a delicate potted rose, its vibrant petals a stark contrast to the tension in the air. "I thought this one might survive better in your care," Blake said, his smile a fragile mask, concealing the weight of his concern. My mouth felt parched. "Thank you, that's incredibly considerate of you." David's smile radiated with an intensity that seemed to pierce through the air. "I'll leave you 2 green thumbs to it," he said, a forced cheerfulness masking the weight of the moment, before vanishing into the shadows. The moment he vanished, an oppressive silence descended, shrouding everything in its heavy embrace. Blake's once playful charm from the dinner party had dimmed, leaving an unsettling silence in its wake. He appeared visibly anxious. "I shouldn't have touched you last night," he started, his voice barely above a whisper, heavy with regret. It has consumed my thoughts since dawn. I crossed a line. I hesitated, caught in a whirlwind of uncertainty, my mind racing for the right words. A part of me fought against the urge to minimize it, to dismiss it as merely a misunderstanding. Yet, a deeper part of me yearned to uncover the truth behind his presence. "It's okay," I whispered, my voice barely breaking the silence. It was merely a fleeting moment. Blake moved in, the air thick with anticipation. That's the crux of it. It was more than a fleeting instant for me. That's the crux of it. It was more than a fleeting instant to me. I stood paralyzed. The way he looked at me, it was anything but lustful. It was excruciating. It was as if he had been holding onto that single sentence for an eternity, the weight of it pressing down on him, desperate to be unleashed. "Blake," I started, my voice trembling with uncertainty. "I'm not here to ignite any misunderstandings," he interjected, his voice laced with urgency. "But I can't ignore the undeniable truth of what transpired between us. Even in the stillness, a weight hung in the air. Even if no one else was aware, my heart pounded with a fierce intensity. We can't go on like this." "I know," he replied, his voice unwavering, a storm brewing beneath the surface. "I had to let it out. I will honor every boundary you choose to establish, even in the stillness, even if no one else was aware." I gulped, my heart racing. "A bond that can withstand the fiercest storms. This is all it can ever be." "Friendship," Blake echoed, a bittersweet smile flickering across his face. "Then let's be the kind of friends who carefully prune roses, delving into the complexities of soil acidity, revealing the depths of our connection. Nothing else exists." Yet, as we shared uneasy laughter and knelt to replant his gift, an undeniable tension hung in the air, crackling like a brewing tempest. Each fleeting attempt to maintain a facade of normalcy only deepened the chasm between us, amplifying the weight of unspoken words and emotions. That night, as David read beside me in bed, I found myself fixated on the ceiling, the silence between us heavy and throbbing with unspoken words. I fixed my gaze on the ceiling, the silence stretching between us, heavy and agonizing. The gala loomed on the horizon, an annual tradition steeped in memories, a ritual I had shared with David for more than a decade. Typically, I faded into the shadows, donning the same unremarkable dress, presenting the same forced smiles that masked my true feelings. Yet this year, an undeniable force compelled me to make a different choice. I donned a deep emerald gown that clung to my form, glistening with an alluring intensity under the spotlight's gaze. Perhaps I craved the sensation of being seen, or perhaps I was already aware of who would show up. Perhaps I craved the sensation of being seen, or maybe, deep down, I was aware of who would show up. Upon our arrival, David was instantly drawn to his coworkers, an unspoken urgency in the air. He gripped the hand firmly, laughter echoing in the air, fully consumed by the weight of the conversation ahead. I lingered in the shadows, a smile plastered on my face, yet my gaze darted around the room with a sense of urgency. And there he was. Blake loomed near the bar, clad in a sharp navy suit, his silver hair meticulously combed back. Yet, it was the intensity of his gaze that froze me in place. A gaze filled with unspoken reverence, as if I were the sole soul in that space. As if I were the sole soul in that space. Silence enveloped us, heavy and thick, as we stood there, words unspoken, the air crackling with unexpressed thoughts. The evening enveloped us in a whirlwind of clinking glasses and echoing laughter, yet an undeniable tension hung in the air, thick and electric. Blake lingered at a cautious distance, acutely aware, perpetually vigilant. And yet, each time I glanced back, his gaze was already fixed upon me. As the music surged to life, couples hesitated for a heartbeat before rushing to the dance floor, their hearts pounding with anticipation. David, engrossed in a heated discussion with a client, failed to acknowledge my presence, his focus unwavering. It was at that moment that Blake stepped forward. "Will you grant me the honor of this dance?" he asked, his voice barely rising above the haunting melody. a fragile thread of sound that hung in the air, thick with unspoken tension. My heart raced as I paused, uncertainty gripping me tightly. "Just one dance," he insisted, his smile lingering with an intensity that hinted at unspoken emotions. I nodded, the weight of the moment pressing heavily upon me. "Just one dance," he urged, his voice thick with longing. His hand found its place at my waist, radiating warmth and an unwavering presence. My hand trembled as it found his shoulder. The space that once separated us dissolved, our bodies swaying in perfect harmony to the haunting melody of a slow jazz ballad. The world slipped away into shadows. The pulse of his heart reverberated beneath my palm, a steady reminder of the intensity of the moment. Each step echoed with unspoken words, a silent dialogue charged with anticipation. Each silence, a haunting murmur. "You look beautiful tonight," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, filled not with flirtation, but with a profound sense of wonder. My mind raced, caught in a whirlwind of uncertainty, leaving me speechless. I averted my gaze, terrified that my eyes would reveal the tumult of emotions swirling within me. A deep, aching longing, overwhelming guilt, awakening. With each step, unspoken words hung in the air. Each silence, a haunting murmur. "I shouldn't feel this way," I breathed out, the weight of the words hanging heavily in the air. "But I truly do." He remained silent, drawing me in tighter, the air thick with unspoken words, subtle enough to escape the attention of others, yet powerful enough to send shivers coursing through my body. In that fleeting instant, a chilling realization washed over me. I was precariously balanced on the brink of an abyss from which I might never return. The final notes faded into silence. I recoiled, gasping, trembling with unease. "We can't do this," I repeated, my voice trembling with urgency. "I know," he whispered, his voice barely breaking the silence, laden with unspoken weight. Yet, in that moment, dancing with you felt undeniably right. We slipped away, just out of sight, before anyone could sense our departure. But I felt the weight of change in the air, a palpable shift that altered everything. I found myself precariously balanced on the brink of an abyss, a place from which I feared I might never return. That night, as I lay beside David in the dim light of our room, tears streamed silently down my cheeks, not because I had turned my back on him. Yet deep down, I was acutely aware that I yearned for something far beyond what I had dared to acknowledge. The days following the gala lingered in an eerie, suspended haze, thick with unspoken tension. I immersed myself in chores, cooking, and reading, yet none of it could quell the tumultuous storm raging within me. Each time I walked by the garden window, the memory of Blake's hand lingering on my back during that dance surged within me, igniting a whirlwind of emotions I could hardly contain. My body leaned into him, as if it held a secret too profound to voice. It felt as though it held a secret too profound for my lips to utter. One fateful evening, David returned home far later than he ever had before. He let the keys clatter onto the counter, his fingers trembling as he loosened his tie, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "Dinner smells good," he muttered, his gaze fixed on the table, as if the words themselves held a weight he couldn't bear to lift. I forced a faint smile, my hand trembling as I stirred the pot, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. "What was your experience of the gala?" I inquired, masking my unease with a facade of indifference. He shrugged, a flicker of indifference masking the turmoil within. "Just like before. Conversations about work. Monotonous orations. Complimentary wine awaits. What about you?" A heavy silence hung in the air. This year, it felt unlike any other. This year felt unlike any other. David's gaze met mine for the very first time. Truly gazed. "What are you trying to say?" My hands became paralyzed above the stove. The sound of my heart echoed like a drum, pounding fiercely in my chest. I switched off the burner, my heart racing as I turned to face him. "I shared a dance with Blake." His brow knitted in a deepening frown. "What now?" "You've shared the floor with others before." I inhaled sharply, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Yet this time, It carried a weight unlike before. The words lingered in the atmosphere, thick with an unsettling weight. David's expression morphed from confusion into a shadowy enigma, leaving a palpable weight in the air. "Diana, are you implying that there's something happening?" "No," I replied, my voice sharp and urgent. "Nothing happened. Not in a physical sense. Yet, deep within, uncertainty looms. In that moment I was truly acknowledged, and that filled me with dread. I felt truly acknowledged, and that filled me with dread." David pressed his back against the counter, his arms tightly crossed, a storm brewing in his eyes. "What happens next?" "I don't know," I breathed, my voice barely escaping my lips. "I never intended to deceive you." For a fleeting second, I feared he might erupt. He exited the kitchen, the air thick with unspoken words. That night we lay back to back, an aching chasm of silence stretching between us, more profound than it had ever been. The following morning, a message arrived, heavy with unspoken implications. "Blake, Susan is aware." She confronted me with unwavering intensity, and I laid bare the truth before her. I confessed to her that there was an undeniable connection between us, one that lingered in the air, even if we never crossed that line. I fixed my gaze on the message, a chill creeping through my veins. "Susan is aware." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows, Susan's call pierced through the silence of my thoughts. Her voice was unervingly calm, a stillness that sent shivers down the spine. "Diana, I can't believe you would ever be the one to shatter a marriage. I trust you can grasp the extent of the harm this has already caused." "Susan, I can't." "I'm not here to fight you," she cut in, her voice trembling with unspoken emotions. "I need you to truly reflect on your desires, because the consequences of your choices are already causing pain to others." That night, David slipped into bed, silence hanging heavily between us. I reached for him, my heart racing with a mix of hope and desperation. He remained there unyielding, yet he remained distant, not leaning in at all. He remained there unyielding, yet he remained distant, not leaning in at all. I lay awake for hours, caught in a relentless struggle between the life I had meticulously constructed and a future shrouded in uncertainty, haunting my thoughts. The house was suffocatingly silent. David and I navigated the space between us like phantoms, courteous, efficient, and shrouded in an unsettling silence. Silence hung in the air, heavy and oppressive, devoid of arguments, slammed doors, or screams. Only emptiness, a void of raw emotion. Silence reigned, only the void remained. 3 days dragged on. On the 4th, I stepped into the kitchen, my heart racing as I found David sitting at the table, the steam from his coffee swirling ominously between his hands. "We need to talk," he said, his voice steady yet heavy with unspoken weight. I nodded, my stomach churning with unease. "I've been reflecting on it all," he started, his gaze heavy and downward. And in that moment, it struck me. Perhaps I ceased to perceive your presence. It's not that my love for you has faded, but rather that I let myself sink into a false sense of security. His voice trembled, breaking the silence with a raw, haunting fragility. "I never truly appreciated you, Diana. I take full responsibility for that. I never truly appreciated you." My eyes brimmed with tears. "I allowed myself to fade away," I murmured, the weight of my words hanging in the air. "I allowed our routine to consume me entirely." He extended his hand across the table, trembling with anticipation. "I can't bear the thought of losing you." My throat constricted. "But I'm not sure I can remain unchanged either." We sat there, two souls intertwined in a fragile connection forged over decades, teetering on the edge of uncertainty, questioning if it could withstand the weight of our unspoken fears. As the afternoon waned, I found myself face to face with Blake for what would be our last encounter. We selected a secluded bench by the lake, an unassuming battleground, a place where neither of us could manipulate the narrative. "I revealed everything to David," I said, my voice unwavering. "And he stood his ground." Carrie's weight. Blake's head dipped slightly, a heavy silence enveloping the moment. I had a feeling deep down that this could be our final farewell. I turned to him, the pain in my chest a piercing reminder of everything at stake. You brought me back to life, Blake. Your presence awakened a flicker of sensation within me, a reminder that I was still capable of feeling. That moment will be etched in my memory forever. You brought me back to the edge of existence. His smile, tinged with sorrow, radiated an unsettling grace. No matter what, my heart will always be in your corner, yearning for your joy. Even if it's not by my side. We stood there, the space between us heavy with unspoken words, and we didn't hug. We stood there, the air thick with unspoken words, and we didn't kiss. We remained in silence, allowing the wind to sweep away the possibilities that might have been ours. That night, I found myself standing beside David in the kitchen, the air thick with unspoken words as we prepared dinner together for the first time in weeks.
No hi haverá declaracions.
There are no vows we can uphold. Simple gestures, slicing through the crisp vegetables, pouring the last drops into waiting glasses, the soft laughter that escaped when the salt slipped from my grasp. And in that moment, it resonated deeper than any words of remorse ever could. In that moment, it resonated deeper than any words of remorse ever could. If you remain with me, I deeply appreciate your presence as we navigate this challenging tale together. Not every love concludes with a title. Not every connection conforms to a mold. Yet, certain connections, be they reignited or severed, leave an indelible David on our souls. If this story stirred something deep within you, we invite you to like, subscribe, and share your reflections below. Your comments breathe life into this space, a realm where stories pulse with authenticity, revealing the depths of human experience and emotion. Every word was consumed with intensity, and our gratitude for each one runs deep. What choice would you have made if you were in Diana's shoes? Until we meet again, if you're healing, embrace the journey to complete restoration. If you're clinging on, do so with poise. And if you're loving, love with fierce intensity.